We're off to the races.
Yay.
We'll let Facebook do its thing and let people know that we're here. If you're on live, just pop into the comments and let me know you're here live. And if you're here on the replay, just comment replay below. And I have Miss Natalie here.
Hello.
Hi. So, okay, Mina. Yeah, Mina says I enjoy hearing him in the background. So thank you. Maverick is right behind me. And because I just got excited there, he got a little bit louder. So that's his jam. He did let me sleep through the night last night. So that was great. So we're going through a little bit of hurdle. Pam says live. Everybody can hear me. Good. So Natalie, do you want to just introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. My name is Natalie Close. I work right now at Libero Credit Union as the regional manager for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex. I live in Glencoe and I have two amazing children, and they're actually not children, they're more like adults now. Actually, Matthew's birthday is today. He's 18, Kyla is 21. And I have an amazing English bulldog named Penelope. She is just my joy. I tell everybody that I love her more than my kids. So
yeah,
that's
so
me.
unlike my French bulldog, yours likes to hang out in other rooms or what have you. Mine just likes to be attached to my leg all the time. So we hear mine, not yours.
Yes, no, she's sleeping in the living room right now.
Yeah, good. And so Natalie went through the 12-week Activate Your Health program. It's a coaching program for women. And so here today, she's going to talk about kind of her journey through the program and the shifts that she's made. And the theme for today is really how Natalie grew her self-belief in herself. And that allowed her to kind of crush her goals. But I think that you're going to really hear a lot more than that she crushed her goals. You're going to really hear how the journey and that self-belief kind of transcended into other parts of her life as well, and how everything kind of shifted and came together for her. So I'm pretty excited to pump into today's kind of chat today. So let's think back, right? Because I know that a lot of women spend a lot of time trying to get to their weight loss goals or their health goals or change their eating on their own, right? Like they dabble in and they get resources and they dabble into like different kinds of groups or challenges or what have you. And so they spend a lot of time basically doing it on their own. And so it's often a hurdle to jump onto why do I need a coach? It's kind of like this, you know, I should know how to do this. I've had 20 years experience losing it. I've had success before, what have you. So do you just want to tell the ladies that are watching, like, what were some of the hurdles you were facing when you reached out for help?
Yeah, for sure. So when I think back to our first conversation, I came to you and said, I just want to lose 10 pounds. That's all. I just want to lose 10 pounds. And we had a conversation about the why and how I could see myself getting there. And I was consistently exercising. I'd never really paid too much attention to nutrition. And I didn't know how to kind of connect everything to make it work. So I figured because I was exercising that it should be easy, and it wasn't. And I really had no idea what type of exercising I should be doing. I had no idea how I should be eating, or like none of those things to figure out how to get to what I thought was my goal.
Yeah, and I do remember that you wanted 10 pounds, and it was like, I work out a lot. I feel like I don't eat a lot. I feel like I eat pretty healthy, but it's not connecting. It's not resulting in the 10-pound weight loss or for me to feel better about myself. And that's what I want to highlight, is the feel better about myself, right? So you got to a point where you're like, okay, obviously these workouts that I'm doing and this thing that I'm doing is not getting me to where I want. And so I need to reach out and get some help. And I want you to kind of go back to that beginning stage, because we did have a conversation where you just wanted to do 10 pounds and we talked about your why. So what did we kind of uncover at that beginning, and then kind of throughout your journey about like, why was that important to you?
So in that conversation, and it was very eye-opening to me. In my life, I've always been a goer. So going to the next meeting, running the kids to sports, like it constantly busy. And I would always say, it's not often that I actually just sit, right? I'm always doing something. And what I found out about myself pretty quickly through conversations with you and just reflecting was when you don't slow down to really just think, you don't recognize why you're doing the things that you're doing. So, when we talk about eating healthy, when we talk about exercising, um, if you're not paying attention to the reasons why you might grab a chocolate bar or grab a cup of coffee, and just blame it on being busy, you're not really helping fuel that inner self, right? You're just doing what's quick and what's easy, and not taking time to really be present.
Yeah. And then that's kind of your pattern, was like, you were busy being a mom, you were busy in this role at work, you're busy juggling a relationship. And then it was like, all of this was like, you were in momentum, you were feeling like you were moving forward, but it wasn't translating the way you wanted to, right? You weren't feeling better about yourself. You weren't getting the results you wanted. And really it was like, we had to have a conversation about, where's the thinking happening, where's the slowing down happening, right? So that we can kind of connect some dots and understand, hey, we do these certain things, this automatic thing, we do this nighttime snacking all the time, we do this thing when we go out to eat, we do this thing when we're procrastinating on a task or whatever all the time, and we never really stop to figure out like why we do that. So I know that some women are like, I just want a meal plan, I just want the workouts, I don't want to do the why. And I want you to really, like, can you make it clear for them, like, why that was such a big shift for you and so important for you?
So in the first 10 days, where it started to really shift was when I did the reset. So those 10 days where I took time and really realized what I was putting into my body. So then when I talked to you about the different things, like some of my habits were, I had to have my coffee in the morning. Very rarely did I have breakfast, but I would have 2 or 3 coffees. I did have a shake during the morning. At nighttime, I would always say, I have to have my Coke. I love my Coke. And with the Coke came the chips, and sometimes came the chocolate bar. I loved my junk food. So identifying that all of those things were happening, and then the hard questions of why. What makes you pick that up, right? If it's a habit, what makes it a habit? And then just really taking time to reflect on, okay, why do I grab that coffee in the morning? Why does it have to be coffee? When you think about caffeine, you think about sugar and what you're putting into your body to fuel your body for the whole day. How does it make you feel? And why do you pick it up? So that when I really started to zone in on the whys, then I realized that it was more, as opposed to a habit, it was more of just a fallback, a comfort. So then identifying, why do you need that comfort? So at nighttime, why do you need to have those chips? And for me, it was, gosh, sometimes I'm bored, right? I'm bored. So then it was assessing, okay, what can I do, or what other habit, what other task can I do in order to not feel bored? Is it reading a book? Is it, you challenged me to try journaling, and that was way out of my comfort zone. And I tried it, and I'd set my timer for 5 minutes, and I would just write whatever was in my head. And that allowed me to identify some of the feelings I had when I would go to grab that coffee, or I would go to grab that Coke or those chips. That whole portion of it really tuned into me that it was much more than just losing weight and thinking that I need to be healthy. It was, oh my gosh, I need to figure out why all of this is happening, and then figure out how to shift that into a healthier, more consistent lifestyle.
Yeah, and it wasn't, when we were exploring like the why it was happening, we weren't necessarily saying don't have the pop, don't have the chips, don't have, we're saying, if you still want it, go ahead and have it. But we were really trying to connect to the pattern of having it, right? So that we can then think about, okay, well, if every time at 9 o'clock I feel bored and I always reach for the chips and the diet pop, then isn't it a better thing to figure out, well, what do I do about that boredom? Because this isn't really fulfilling it. And it's actually creating a whole other whack of things that I don't want in my life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was this one point where you said, you know, I just want to get to 10 pounds. And we had talked about like you had already had success losing weight, you had already got there and whatever. And tell the women that are watching this about the picture when you were looking back at you at that time.
Yeah, so just for some background, for some history, when I started, started exercising probably about 2 years ago, and I weighed one weight, and then through those 2 years, I put on another 10 pounds, and then through my journey with Cindy, like that has slowly come down. But when I was looking at pictures, first of all, she challenged me to look at the picture when I started, and I asked myself, like when I took that picture at that point in time, I wasn't happy with myself, right? That's why I started exercising. So why now do I want to be that weight per se when at that point in time I wasn't happy with myself either? So it made me really reflect on, first of all, is it a weight thing or is it actually not facing what's making me happy? So then doing all of these things, the journaling, the self-reflection mindset, they made me realize that, okay, when I look at those pictures, it's what's on the inside that counts. And then it's also understanding too, when I compared, down the path to my journey, the picture at the end to what that first picture looked like, I was pretty much the exact same weight, but looked totally different. So when you looked in the mirror, right, totally different. And that was by, investing in foods that I'd never eaten before, or putting things together that were yummy and just gave me a whole new perspective to palate. Eating things for the sake of enjoying the taste of them, as opposed to a habit of a Coke and a chocolate bar. Don't get me wrong, I still eat the chocolate bar. There's certain times where, as a woman, you need those, but it was amazing how when you experiment with the food and you find new things that you like and you incorporate them into your daily diet, and the portion of it too, right? Like that was something I really struggled with as well. I would think, oh gosh, I had my vegetables, but what did that portion look like? What did the portions look like during the day? So yeah, it was mind blowing, that's for sure.
Yeah. And if you were to look at Natalie's pictures from the start to the end, you would swear she lost so much more weight than what you actually did, because your pictures look visually different. Like the amount of, like, women always say they want toning, like that lean muscle, and just the shape of your body was totally different there. And I think for you, that was a learning, because then all of a sudden I got all these floods of questions: is why is that? What's going on? Like, how do we get more of this? And all of a sudden the conversation wasn't about losing the 10 pounds, which we've surpassed, but it was more about like, okay, I'm seeing this here now, that, oh, okay, now I can have that and feel good about how I feel and how I look on the inside. My inside and my outside matches. Because when we first talked, that wasn't congruent for you. It was like everybody sees you as a very bubbly, outgoing kind of person, has your shit together, but inside, that's not how you were feeling about yourself.
No, not at all. And it comes back to that age old saying, if you talk to other people the way that you talk to yourself, how would those people react? And that was very resounding, right? And even in my perception of food, I for so many conversations, you would catch me on saying good food, bad food, and that's still something that I have to mentally tell myself not to say. There's no such thing as good food, bad food. It's being mindful of the portions that you're eating, being mindful of, if you want that chocolate bar, how are you going to, and again, you related everything as an investment budget mindset, because I'm a banker. And so that made sense to me. It's like, okay, you have a budget, how are you going to fit that in? Like, you can have whatever you want, but how are you going to make that work for your body so that you're consistently following that track that you want to follow?
Yeah. And it makes you really calibrate to really think about, like, okay, is that Big Turk and Diet Coke really what I want? Well, no, it's probably not as decadent as I want. It's probably not as tasty as I want. What I actually want is this. And yeah, that's worth my investment over here. Whereas this was just like, oh, my son was eating it, my boyfriend was eating it, it was just around or whatever. Whereas this is like, you actually enjoy your food. And when you enjoy your food, then it's not competing. Like I always think about someone who eats like a boring chicken on a salad because that's what they feel they have to lose weight. It's always going to compete with like the peanut butter and jelly sandwich because that tastes so much better than this boring salad, but that's what we think it takes. And you said, hey, I grew up in a household where my food was kind of bland. And so we had to have a conversation about, are you enjoying what you're eating, right? Are you liking it? How do we change the flavors of that so you can actually enjoy? Because hey, weight loss and bland food don't go together. And once we started to do that on top of the mindset stuff and everything, growing our awareness, then it started to come together for you, because now it was like the chips or the chocolate at the end of the night wasn't as appealing, because we were also understanding, one, it was boredom, so we were dealing with the boredom different, but two, it was like it wasn't as appealing because everything else that you had prepared tasted good. It was no longer bland. Do I got that?
You got it. Exactly. And it's also in finding, so in the food, I created a new hobby as well. So in the meal prep, right? Just so looking at the different recipes, looking at different ideas for recipes, and then meal prepping, and just having those at your fingertips too, right? Because you knew if you had a day where you were tired or you have meetings into the evening, that meal was quick, ready. It was in, and it was all of those yummy things that I enjoyed. And it made me go outside of my comfort zone in recipes to try, right? Because I did have that mindset of, well, I got to eat just plain chicken and salad with no dressing. And that is not, it's such a myth, right? And once I realized that, and I was like, oh, I can incorporate this, and I can put this salad dressing on this salad. And, it just all of a sudden opened up all of these yummy things that I could eat and try. So,
Beyond, and you could still go out for dinner when restaurants were open. You were still going out for dinner.
Yep.
Well, so you didn't have to give up that social aspect or the things that you and your partner do all the time. Like you didn't have to give any of that up.
No, not at all. And even I can remember saying to you, I love my glass of red wine, right? Like that was another thing that I love to have, and that's something you can incorporate in, right? You know what your budget is for the day, and you incorporate it in if that's something that you want to have when you go out for dinner, or if you're going to eat something that's a little bit more carb friendly, then you plan for that and you budget for it during the day.
Yeah. And there were times where you would send in your meal plan and I would be like, is that good? Do you really like that? Or I'd be like, was it worth it? And you'd be like, heck yeah, it was delicious. Or
Yep.
you'd be like, yes, I really like that. And I'll be like, okay, because I've seen this on your meal plan for 4 days now. So
Like bag salads.
yeah. So okay, so one of the things is women sometimes struggle with two things. One, they struggle with guilt, right? Guilt taking time out for themselves, especially if they have kids or a busy career. That's one. And number two is investing in themselves. So whether that's a financial investment or a time investment, that they have a hard time with that because they feel it takes away from either their family or from whatever else is going on. So can you just talk about, because you're a mom, you have a busy career, so can you just touch on the guilt part to start off?
Yes. So you do feel guilt, right? You feel guilt taking time for yourself, and I always try to do things, and this is good things to do, is do things with your kids, be involved in your kids' lives. But you do come to a point where it's like, okay, I'm doing all of this for the kids, or I'm doing all of this for another person. At what point do I step back and say, okay, I don't need to feel guilty about taking time to myself? It's being mindful of the fact that you deserve to invest in yourself. I think to all the conversations I have with my employees and with our owners, and we talk about investing and paying yourself first, but very rarely do we actually take our own advice and actually invest in ourselves, right? And that sometimes is time, and it doesn't need to start off as huge. It needs to start off small and really pay attention to how do you feel in that moment of putting that effort, or whether you're reading that book or having the bath or doing the exercising. how do you feel and how does that make you feel for the rest of the day? So battling with the guilt, that was always tough for me. So once I actually started living in the moment and understanding how I felt, if I didn't have enough time to myself and actually put that routine time in, and if I had it in there, like when you compare them, it was like, gosh, an hour to myself is lovely between working out and having a bath and actually picking up a book and reading it. It just makes you feel free.
Yeah, and a lot of us are also not considering that we spend time in our day where it's more mindless, where we're scrolling through our phone or watching a show and we're like, what did I just watch, right? And so we're not thinking about that. One, we're spending energy in mindless activities, and if we can be more mindful, then this is what happened to you, is you became more present in your life, but with your kids and at work. And so here you are, I just want to lose 10 pounds. And then we started working on a habit called notice and name. And that was where a lot of shifts started to happen. And so this investment in yourself, and being more mindful, losing the weight, transcended. And so just talk about like how it changed your role in your job and then with your kids.
Yeah. So during this journey, I loved all of the articles that we had access to. And during the coaching sessions, Cindy would say to me, like, what do you want to work on? And I'd be like, let's go down the list. There was many things that popped up. And one thing that was predominant was this notice and name. And when I started to read the articles on how to manage that, how to combat it, and how to play it so that you didn't absorb negative energy. So my personality is I'm a coach. I try to help people, and in helping that, you often assume feelings, you assume how they're feeling, and you try and fix. And that relates back to as a parent as well, right? You as a parent, you want to fix for your kids. As an employer, I want to fix for my employees and make things easy and for the people that come to us. And sometimes it's not about me fixing it for them, right? It's about me listening and then posing questions back, helping them be able to fix it for themselves. So that was very resounding to me and freeing. And it made me just feel level, right? Because one, you're actually helping people solve things, whether it's your kids, whether it's your friends, whether it's your employees, whatever it may be. You're being that support to them, but you're not assuming their feelings and what they're going through as your own. It's not about me, it's about them. And yeah. That's what I had to keep telling myself.
And that was kind of like what happens in coaching. Like it happens with a lot of clients, is like all of a sudden you started to do your role at work differently, and you started to develop your relationships differently. Whereas opposed to before, your identity was really tied into solving, being the problem solver for everyone because they would like you more that way. And then all of a sudden, when we started to like build your self-belief, build your confidence, get back your time, right? And we did all that, then it was like, I can show up differently and people can still like me, and I'll feel better about myself too. And I also remember your son, there was something about getting your driver's license and stuff. And I just remember like, that was a huge shift for you, was like, this isn't mine to solve, right? This isn't mine to like pick them up, drop them off, make the appointment, like do all of this stuff that I usually do. And you showed up differently, and he ended up just taking ownership of it, right?
He did. Yeah. And that was, I think, the turning point for me. As a parent, you try and make things easy for them. And for him, it was, driving him to friend's house, driving him to school, driving him, like there was constant things that I was doing for him, when in all actuality, he could take charge and make that better for himself. And as soon as I started posing the questions back to him, as opposed to trying to fix it, all of a sudden he took control of that. He booked his driver's exam. He did all of that and felt very proud of himself. So as a parent, like as much as it might be a little bit of tough love and posing the questions back and making them think for themselves, he was so proud of himself too. And that in turn made me feel amazing, because I didn't fix it for him. He fixed it for himself.
I remember that moment.
Yes.
Okay, so Natalie, you've tried losing weight and tried to get to your goal for a while. What was different about this than all those times before? I think you
Oh
kind
my,
of highlighted it, but let's sum it up.
yeah, I think it's just understanding the why. That was it wasn't about losing 10 pounds. It was about finding out what was happening inside me and working on those areas in order to, when you think when you look in the mirror, I want to lose 10 pounds. But really, when I look in the mirror, I want to like the person that's looking back at me. I don't care what she looks like. I just want to make sure that I like that person. And as soon as you like that person that's in the mirror, everything just starts to click into place, right? You want to fuel your body with foods that are going to get you to be consistent through your journey, as opposed to just working towards losing 10 pounds. Like, I realized really quickly, I didn't want to just lose 10 pounds. I wanted to feel good always. So what do I need to do in order to get to that spot? And it's a constant process, that's for sure. It's you work on it every day, but it's fulfilling.
But it's definitely more empowering because now you're thinking about this person standing right here and the person I want to be in the future is all about feeling good in my body, feeling congruent with how I feel inside and how people see me on the outside, right? And I want to show up in the world feeling good in my body and in my choices. And so it's very empowering. Whereas a lot of women will make food decisions or exercise decisions based on fear. What if I gain weight? What if the weight comes back? What if I can't lose the weight? Here I go again. I'm not worth it. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. And that's all very fear based. And so we try and use that negative energy, that maybe anger or what have you, we try and use it to fuel us to do better. And that's what a lot of women come from, that have dying experience, have experience with. But here we are kind of shifting it all in its head, right? And just coming from a different place that's really empowering, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, that's so great. And so just thinking about like hiring a coach, how is hiring a coach versus doing it on your own different?
Oh, you know what? You asked me the hard questions. I there was some days I was like, geez, where is this coming from? But that was me avoiding what was happening. So it definitely makes you aware. I think the hard questions are good. And that was what made me look in the mirror and really look at myself and say, okay, it's not about the weight. It's not about losing weight or a fitness journey, or it's about what's inside. You need to make sure the pieces click inside, and somebody needs to ask you those hard questions, because you're not going to ask yourself. I mean, 2 years I spent and I avoided every hard question and ate Doritos instead. So it's it's having somebody keep you accountable and asking those questions.
Yeah, it's I'm pretty open about it, but I did marriage counseling, and so it was kind of like she really put it into perspective. She says, couples who are struggling in their relationship will go on vacation as a way to rebuild the relationship, but will never ask the questions. And so, we'll never do that kind of piece, right? And so this is kind of like that, right? I've been told I ask really hard questions.
Love it.
And so, but it does get you to do that introspective work, because nobody wants to because this is what happens is you'll lose 20 pounds and won't celebrate that success. And you'll be like, yeah, but I didn't lose 25. You'll get to 25, won't celebrate that success. And you'll be like, yeah, but I didn't lose 30. Right. And
Yeah.
so this is like doing the inner work, is that so that you get to your weight and you feel really good. We learn how to celebrate that outside of food. We learn how to celebrate that. And then if you want to go further, it's really asking, well, what does that give me? What does that give me back in my life if I go further? And so that's a different kind of approach than always kind of like, it's never good enough. It's never good enough.
Yes. And I guess that's the difference, right? Is now it was like that picture, right? Looking at that picture and thinking, okay, it's not the weight. I'm the same weight in both those pictures, and it's two different people. So it's what you put into it, and then understanding that it's not a quick, once I reach this goal, I'm going to be happy, because it's a wheel you'll never be able to get out of. it's understanding that it's a consistent journey, and you're heading towards a healthy lifestyle as opposed to just one goal. And that was eye-opening to me.
Yeah, and one of the exercises we did is really painting that future self. And that really gave you clarity as to like, this is the direction I'm going, and this is what I'm wanting. And this is how the person today is helping me build that person or moving me closer.
Yes, or the letter that I had to write, my future self. And, that I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to write that. It's going to be 2 paragraphs and be done. I think it was 45 minutes later, I had 8 pages, and I thought, holy crap, do I have a lot to tell this girl.
Yeah, that's so great. And I bet you people listening right now would be thinking, yeah, mine would be 2 paragraphs. But when you go through a journey like this, it all shifts and changes, right? And you're finished the 12 weeks. You've been finished for a bit. I just want to, because a lot of people were like, they'll finish and then they'll go back to old habits. Has that been happening to you?
No, but I identified what the habits were. Like I said, I still sometimes during the month, there is a time where you just have to eat that chocolate, and you go for it and you enjoy every second of it. And then you go back to, your healthy food that you eat. But when you think of it as a constant journey and a lifestyle, you keep it up. My exercising, I still do every morning because I love it. I love it, love the way that it makes me feel. I love my meal prep days. I usually spend one day on the weekend. So then I have more time during the week to be able to spend with my kids or read my book or not in the kitchen all the time. And then, planning meals, journaling, like you fought me on that one. And I, I love it. I still, every night I set my timer and I do my little bit of journaling, and away I go. And, making sure the cell phone stays in the kitchen at nighttime. Like there's just different things that contributes to a good lifestyle. And when you identify how you feel when you do that, you just continue.
Yeah. And just because a lot of women listening to this are still going to be saying, I just want to lose the weight, then I'll feel better. Even though we're done, you're still continuing to lose your weight. You're still continuing. Yeah. And so it's not kind of a one, this is where I love what I do, is because I love giving you the tools and the skills to be able to keep going, right? It's not like those skills are only applicable while you're in this, and after that you can't use them. It's just not like that. So when we look at the comments, just as we're finishing up here, I just want to see if there's any questions. We got lots of comments in here. So we had a lot of hellos, and yeah, Brenda says, yes, it's much more than losing weight. Mina asked, did journaling help make things clear for you? So I think you kind of talked about that, but what would you say? Like, we didn't start off with a huge journaling practice. We set a timer of 5 minutes or whatever, right? It's hard to talk yourself out of it, but what came out of that? What was the highlight of doing that?
So when I started it, I really didn't know what I was going to get out of it because I didn't know what I was going to write. So what I was working on when I first started was why at nighttime do I gravitate towards, the Coke, towards the chips, towards the chocolate? So I started to pay attention to how I was feeling in those moments. And once I realized how I was feeling, so writing it helped me really be mindful, be present, be in that moment. And then I started to deal with the things that were happening, right? Whether it was a fight with my kids, or whether it was, a rotten day at work and I had to pour that wine. Like it was really just, it made me understand what was happening in that moment that triggered those cravings. So that's how it started. And then after that, I turned it into, because I feel like it's a constant practice, but I do feel like I've conquered that portion of it. And now I find it's more of a gratefulness, a thankfulness, and it makes me really appreciate, it makes me appreciate my kids, my family, Terry, my work. It just really brings everything together and it contributes to a happier inner me. So where I fought it and I had to face the hard things that were happening inside me, it really just, it flowed over into something good that I love to do. I actually have a really nice book that I write it in now. So
I really love that it's kind of evolved into something. And by the way, any women who are struggling to sleep, like, you wake up in the middle of the night or you have like that busy brain, doing the journal, like you said, is a really great way to get your mind in a more grateful restful place before you get into sleep, and to kind of help you do that brain dump too. So it's like a double win there. What do we have here? Brenda says, yes, it's what counts on the inside. Kelly says, I love meal prepping and planning. It's a lifesaver. Kelly says, self-care isn't selfish. I need to really work on this. Yeah. Any advice there?
It's it's one of those mindful things, right? It's taking that time. It's schedule that time in for yourself, right? We schedule every other aspect of our life. We owe ourselves the investment into ourselves, and it's finding things that you like. I love to have my bath, at nighttime. It relaxes me. What I found I was doing when I did that was I bring my cell phone and be, scrolling mindlessly. And instead I shifted that to what did I enjoy? What have I enjoyed doing in my life? And realized, before my kids were born, I loved to read. I would read so many books in a year. It was crazy. And I brought that back into it. So now, like, I'm enjoying like crime books. But it's finding what you enjoy and then dedicating that time to yourself. Self-care is so important.
Yeah, great. And I think Brenda sums it up. You can't pour from an empty cup. We need to look after ourselves first, to be our best for others. And she says, thanks for the share. And so does Mina there. So just as we wrap up, last question is, what's the one piece of advice that you're like, if I could scream this from the rooftop and share it with women, it would be this?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I think I have two. So be mindful and invest in yourself, and remember that there's no such thing as a bad food.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you, Natalie, for joining us and inspiring other women as well, because this whole journey of self-discovery and this whole journey of trying to find ourselves, because we get lost in the work and the marriage and the kids and the chaos of life or whatever, and getting back to you. So I think it was a really important message that you shared with everybody. And so I hope that women will hit the comments and tell us what their biggest takeaway is, whether you're live or replay. And I just want to thank you for coming, and thank all the women for joining in today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.